2021, a film studio spent over $70 million to recreate the feelings of watching a movie from 1984. Not to tell a new story, not to explore new ideas, to recreate a feeling. They digitally resurrected a dead actor, rebuilt sets from 40 years ago, and carefully engineered moments designed to make you cry, not because something meaningful happened, but because you remembered something meaningful that happened decades ago. And it worked. Audiences wept. Critics called it a love letter to the fans, and nobody stopped to ask the obvious question. If we're spending this much money and talent to make people feel what they felt in 1984, what are we not making instead?
Winston, you're about to tell people that all these legacy sequels and remakes they've been crying happy tears over are actually choking the life out of creative storytelling? You know how people get when you touch their childhood, right? Them don't want to hear that Jurassic World might be the reason we're not getting new original dinosaur stories. Them want more Chris Pratt riding motorcycles with raptors. And them want to feel 12 again while watching it.
I'm not here to tell them what they want, Tombs. I'm here to show them what they're getting instead of what they could have had, and what it's costing us. Good evening. My name is Winston Eves, and today from my library we are examining the nostalgia machine. In 2015, Star Wars The Force Awakens made over $2 billion by giving audiences a story they already seen. A desert planet, a droid carrying vital information, a young nobody discovering their special, a super weapon that destroys planets. It was a new hope with a different name, and audiences didn't just accept it, they celebrated it. It feels like Star Wars again, they said, as if Star Wars was a feeling to be replicated rather than a universe to be expanded. This was not by accident. It was a calculated resurrection. Disney had purchased Lucasfilm for $4 billion, and they needed to prove the investment was sound. The safest way to do that? Give people exactly what they already loved. Don't risk the new, guarantee the familiar. And it worked. Jurassic World made $1.6 billion by putting dinosaurs in a theme park again. Literally the same premise as the original, just with better CGI. Ghostbusters Afterlife made money by recreating shots from 1984 frame for frame. Top Gun Maverick became one of the highest grossing films of 2022 by being a sequel to a movie from 1986. The pattern is unmistakable. Nostalgia has become the most bankable commodity in entertainment. But here's what's notable. These aren't just sequels. Sequels have always existed. These are legacy sequels. Stories specifically designed to resurrect the emotional experience of the original rather than to continue the narrative in a meaningful direction. They're not asking, what happens next? They're asking, can we make you feel 17 again? Ghostbusters Afterlife is perhaps the purest example. The film's entire structure is about children discovering their grandfather's legacy, finding his equipment, and essentially reenacting the first film. The climax features digital recreations of dead actors fighting the same villain from 1984. The film is not about ghosts, it's about remembering a movie about ghosts. It's nostalgia for nostalgia. And gaming has followed the same trajectory. The Halo television series spent millions attempting to capture the feeling of playing Halo Combat Evolved, but instead of adapting what made the games compelling, it recycled iconography. The helmet, the armor, the ring, while fundamentally misunderstanding the source material. It gave fans visual nostalgia without narrative substance, a hollow reproduction.
So what you're saying is, the studios learned they can make more money selling people their own memories than creating new ones. That's not just lazy, Winston. That's parasitic. Them feeding off the past because the present takes too much imagination, and the future takes too much courage.
It's more strategic than that, Tombs. Creating new IP is expensive and risky. Original stories can fail, but nostalgia has a built-in audience. People who loved Star Wars in 1977 are now in their 60s with disposable income. People who played Halo in college are now parents who will take their children to see the Master Chief on screen. The audience is pre-sold. The marketing writes itself. Remember this? We brought it back. But there's a cost to this model that nobody's accounting for, because every dollar spent recreating the past is a dollar not spent creating the future. Every studio executive who greenlit Jurassic World instead of an original dinosaur thriller made a choice. Every time a Star Wars Legacy sequel gets made, a new space opera doesn't. The nostalgia machine isn't just replicating the past, it's consuming the future. And here's how the mechanism works. In 1993, Steven Spielberg made Jurassic Park, an adaptation of a novel that asked genuine questions about hubris, chaos theory, and humanity's relationship with nature. The dinosaurs were the vehicle, not the point. The film was about something. In 2015, Jurassic World asked a different question. What if we just did Jurassic Park again, but bigger? A theme park opens. It fails. Dinosaurs escape. People run. The film copies the original structure so precisely that it becomes a theme park attraction of itself, a simulation of a better movie. And when that movie made over $1 billion, the message to the studios were clear. You don't need new ideas. You need bigger executions of old ideas. This creates a feedback loop. Successful nostalgia projects prove nostalgia sells. More nostalgia projects get greenlit. Original projects get passed over because they lack proven IP. And as fewer original projects get made, audiences become more desperate for new stories, which makes them more susceptible to nostalgia, which studios then exploit by making more nostalgia projects. The loop tightens. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny demonstrates this perfectly. Harrison Ford is 80 years old, playing a character he first played at 39. The film digitally de-ages him for the opening sequence, literally using technology to recreate the past, and then spends the rest of its runtime reminding you of better Indiana Jones films. And when it underperformed at the box office, the diagnosis wasn't, maybe we shouldn't be making Indiana Jones movies with an 86-year-old actor. It was, maybe we didn't reference the originals enough.
That's madness, Winston. Them literally saying the problem with trying to recreate the past is that they didn't try hard enough to recreate the past. That's not creative thinking. That's a snake eating its own tail and calling it a sustainable diet.
And it's spreading to every medium. Video games, which once pushed boundaries with original IP like BioShock, Portal, and The Last of Us, are now dominated by sequels, remakes, and reboots. The Last of Us Part 1 is a remake of a game from 2013. Dead Space is a remake. Resident Evil is on its 4th remake. The Halo TV series attempted to capitalize on a 20-year-old nostalgia without understanding why people love the games. The pattern isn't limited to one medium. Comics are also relaunching the same characters with the same origin stories for the 40th time. Literature is publishing authorized sequels to classics written by dead authors. New Sherlock Holmes novels, new James Bond books, new Dune prequels. The entire entertainment industry has become a museum that charges admissions to see recreations of the exhibits. And here's what's making this particularly insidious. The nostalgia isn't even authentic. Ghostbusters Afterlife doesn't recreate what Ghostbusters actually was. It recreates what you remember it being. It amplifies the sentimentality, removes the edge, softens the comedy. It's not the original. It's a cover band playing the greatest hits with worse musicians. The original Ghostbusters was a comedy about con men accidentally becoming heroes. It was irreverent, cynical, weird. Ghostbusters Afterlife is a sincere family drama about legacy and honoring the past. These are not the same thing, but the latter pretends to be a former, and the audience accepts the substitution because they want to feel what they felt in 1984, even if they have to settle for a simulation. Here's what nobody's calculating: opportunity cost. Every legacy sequel that gets made represents dozens of original projects that didn't. Studios have finite resources, finite money, finite talent, finite release slots. When Disney makes another Star Wars legacy sequel, they're choosing not to make something new. When Universal makes another Jurassic World, they're choosing dinosaurs they've already shown us over dinosaurs we've never seen. And this isn't just theoretical. We can see what's disappeared. In the 1990s and early 2000s, studios regularly produced mid-budget original films. The Matrix, The Sixth Sense, Gladiator, Inception. Films with original concepts, modest budgets, and room to take creative risk. These have essentially vanished. The modern studio model is make $200 million legacy sequels or make $5 million indie films. The middle ground, where creativity used to thrive, has been hollowed out. The Matrix cannot be made today, not because the technology doesn't exist, it's better now, but because no major studio would greenlit an original sci-fi property with that budget when they could make another Star Wars instead. The Matrix worked because it was new. It showed audiences something they've never seen, but newness is risky, and nostalgia is safe. and the risk aversion is getting worse. Top Gun Maverick succeeded, so now studios want to make more legacy sequels with aged actors returning to their iconic roles. We're getting Gladiator 2, Beetlejuice 2, Tron 3, films nobody asked for, based on an IP from 40 years ago, because one legacy sequel succeeded and studios learned the wrong lesson.
So the industry not just running out of ideas, them actively choosing not to have new ideas because old ones feel safer. Winston, that's not sustainable. Eventually, you'll run out of past to cannibalize. What them gonna do when every franchise been rebooted 3 times and audiences finally tired of seeing the same story with different lighting?
That's the question they're not asking, because the model only works if audiences continue to feel nostalgia for the originals. But what happens when a generation grows up on nothing but reboots and legacy sequels? What are they nostalgic for? The copies? The simulations? How do you generate nostalgia for something that was itself a nostalgia product? There's an entire generation whose introduction to Star Wars was The Force Awakens, a film designed to replicate A New Hope. Their nostalgia is for a copy of something they never experienced. And when they're 40, what will studios sell them? A reboot of a reboot? A legacy sequel to the legacy sequel? The nostalgia machine is consuming itself, and it's doing so at the expense of the new stories, new voices, and new ideas that should be building the future of entertainment. Here's what's being lost that nobody's quantifying. The next generation of original IP. Star Wars was original in 1977. Jurassic Park was original in 1993. The Matrix was original in 1999. Halo was original in 2001. These weren't sequels or reboots, they were visions. Stories someone wanted to tell because they hadn't been told yet. But if the industry only greenlights proven IP, where do the new visions come from? If young filmmakers, writers, and game designers learn that the only way to get funding is to attach yourself to existing franchises, what happens to the original thought? You get a generation of creatives who are exceptionally talented at recreating the past and profoundly inexperienced at imagining the future. The Halo TV series failed not because audiences don't want Halo stories, but because it tried to be both a Halo adaptation and something new, and succeeded at neither. It wanted the built-in audience of the games, but also wanted to tell its own story. The result satisfied no one, not the fans who wanted the games adapted faithfully, and not the new viewers who found a derivative of better sci-fi.
So the nostalgia machine creating a catch-22. You can't just recreate the original or fans say it's soulless. But you can't change too much or fans say you ruined it. And all the while, the machine grinding away, preventing new stories from being told because all the money go into figuring out how to make old stories feel new.
Exactly. And the tragedy is that the original creators often understand this. George Lucas knew Star Wars needed to end. Steven Spielberg moved on to new projects. The Wachowskis tried to warn us with The Matrix Resurrections, a film that explicitly criticizes the nostalgia machine and legacy sequels while being a legacy sequel itself. It's a meta-narrative about how Warner Bros. Could make another Matrix with or without them. So they made one that condemned the practice. And the audiences didn't get it. They complained it wasn't nostalgic enough. Here is the uncomfortable question. Why does this work? Why are audiences willing, eager even, to pay more money to experience stories they have already experienced? Why is it feels like the original treated as a compliment rather than an admission of creative bankruptcy? The answer is simpler and sadder than it initially appears. Nostalgia is comforting. It's a return to a time when things felt simpler, better, and more hopeful. When you watch Ghostbusters Afterlife and you cry at the digital recreation of Harold Ramis, you're not crying because something meaningful happened to the story. You're crying because you remember when things were different. When he was alive. When you were younger. The film isn't giving you a story. It's giving you access to a feeling you've been chasing for decades. And studios have learned to weaponize this. They've learned that if they recreate the iconography, the music, the locations, the costumes, the shots, they can trigger that feeling on demand. They don't need to earn it with storytelling. They just need to remind you, show you the Millennium Falcon, play the Jurassic Park theme, have an aged Harrison Ford put the hat back on. The feeling activates and you interpret as the film being good. But it's not the film, it's you crying at your own past.
That's a dark revelation, Winston. You're saying these films aren't actually good. Them just emotionally manipulative in ways audiences can't resist. because the manipulation tied to their own memories. The studio's not about art, they're making expensive triggers for fans that across exist.
And it works because we let it work, because we want it to work, because sitting in a theater and feeling 17 again, even for 90 minutes, even through a simulation, is preferable to accepting that 17 is gone and is not coming back. But here's what we're trading for that feeling: the future. Every dollar spent on nostalgia is a dollar not spent on the next Star Wars, the original one that nobody has seen before, that changed everything. We're so busy trying to recreate 1977 that we're preventing 2027 from having its own defining moment. So here's my question you need to answer honestly. The next time you're deciding what to watch, and you're choosing between a legacy sequel that promises to make you feel like a kid again and an original story you've never heard of, are you choosing the legacy sequel because it's actually better? Or because you're afraid of what you'll feel if the new story isn't as good as the memory you're protecting? Because one of those choices builds the future, and the other one buries it.
For what it's worth, viewer, me would rather see something new that fails than see something old succeed at being exactly whatever it told.
That's just you, Tooms, and apparently not very many others.